welcome back to the Behind the Joystick. I'm your host today, Cordy Yikes, and I have here with me Lucas. How are you today?
I'm doing fantastic. Thank you for having me, Courtney.
Thank you. For our viewers who don't know what you do in the esports or the collegiate space, go ahead and tell us about yourself.
Of course. My name is Lucas Hayworth. I'm the Director of Esports at Oklahoma Christian University. I also serve in national leadership in a few different ways. I've been around the collegiate esports space since December of 2019. I
Wow.
started my program here at the college as a student, and I built it as a student club and got scouted to grow it as an athletic level program. And so we've been in a fully established varsity program for the past 3.5 years, and in totality, 5. I also serve as the chair elect of the board of directors for the NECC. I also serve on the eligibility committee for NACE, and I am also the founder for the Oklahoma Academic Esports Alliance, which is a private non for profit in the state of Oklahoma, where we have a full band of 18 colleges and universities that are a part of this program that elevates getting students from the K through 12 level to continue their education through any college, university, tech center, anything like that, using esports as an ecosystem vehicle. So I
That
do quite a
is
bit of
awesome.
things.
Yes.
Yeah.
Are
Um,
you still in school or did you just graduate or?
So I graduated right after I started the club.
Okay.
I had a college friend whose sister at the time was a professor at OC and got shoved to do the esports program as the faculty advisor. And she
Yeah.
didn't really have any tie to it or connection to the esports space at all. She's an animator and an artist more than an actual gamer or competitor. And so she asked her sister, does does she know anybody at Oklahoma Christian that knows anything about esports? And her sister, my friend, um, she asked me, like, "Hey, do you know anything about esports? Like, could you talk with my sister and walk her through a few things?" And I did, and I ended up helping just start the club and get it off the ground. And then I graduated, and the same month I graduated, the athletic director approached me right before I graduated and asked me if I'd be willing to become a GA or a graduate assistant and build the esports program with some funding and scholarships and stuff like that as a club sport under athletics here at Oklahoma Christian. And so it was kind of like a weird mixture of experiences. But I,
Right.
I graduated with my undergraduate in English writing in December of 2019. And I immediately started a master's in business administration and worked on that for a year and a half while starting and building up this program and like laying the foundation and the groundwork and the infrastructure for what we've become today during that period. So I've been full time since May of 2021. So
That
three and
is
a half years at this
awesome.
point.
How was the first year to 3 years of this? Were there probably
Oh
were,
my
like, some really
lord.
bad challenges? What were,
the
like, the challenges you had to face for it?
the motto that I've held growing this program is to fail forward. I've had basically next to zero mentorship or support from the university in this endeavor, which is a
Mhm.
double-edged sword. The good
Yeah.
side about it is definitely that I had a lot more autonomy than what others in my space might have had, especially as like a 22 to a 24-year-old starting an entire program on campus with no
Right.
guidance or KPIs. Like, I really was let loose, and
Mhm.
they adopted my vision when they hired me full time. Um, so it's been hard, especially the first 3 years. It was very much like, hey, I encountered very unique issues and had to solve them in very creative manners. And then I've had some very hard issues that helped drive my pillars that I now combine and build my program around. For example, my community and my culture aspect of the program is a super high value pillar to me right now,
Right.
and has been for the past like 2.5 years. But the first couple years, I really just wanted to build the program, recruit as many students as I could. Didn't really matter where they were from or kind of were much at all. I just wanted to kind of I could make this work because that was the only measurement of success that I had was, hey, I want you to make good problems for us. Go recruit as many students as you possibly can. Make good
Yeah.
problems that we have to go then and solve over recruiting, right? And so I didn't filter much at all the first couple years and brought in about net 30 students every single year to grow
Wow.
this program. So I started with 3 Rocket League kids in the club, And the first year I ended with about 16 students from a mixture of recruited and on campus. And then after that, I hit up 36, and then 61 roughly. And then last year we ended right below 80, and this year we started about 91.
That
So
is amazing. And then plus
we've grown.
also you
Yeah,
started around the pandemic too, right? So like
we did.
that was a
Oh my lord.
definite
I put in a lot of time very early on when I was starting because I didn't know much of anything about college esports. Whatever.
Mhm.
Like I'm an avid consumer and participated in esports for many years, like 15 at this point, since like CS really.
Oh
But
wow.
and like closed League of Legends, for example. But
Right.
the college esports side of things and like the type role and building a program, like I'm program manager by trade basically, that I had no experience in really, and I did not have any connections or ties to collegiate esports. I didn't participate as a player in collegiate esports. I didn't know it really existed until I got scouted to help build it. So the first like 8 to 10 months, I spent almost all of it trying to like cold call people on LinkedIn, and try to ask them if I could ask them any questions I possibly could. I sat in on a very like right after the pandemic started, everyone was separate, like
Mhm.
remote. NACAD, which is the National Association of Collegiate Directors, Esports Directors, I think, they hosted a like virtual like a conference where they had a bunch of speakers come through and talk about college esports and like their or whatever, right? And I
Right.
remember taking at least 1 to 2 pages of notes on every single session. I had about 30 pages of notes, just from sitting in that conference, and I talked with basically like almost every other speaker, like half the speakers. I sat and talked with one on one afterwards and asked them questions and picked their brains. And one of them was Dan over at Maryville, Clerky, and
Okay.
he gave some very good insight into what drove him to be as competitively successful and like how he values his students and his time and stuff. And that kind of helped set some of my early vision, which is why again I didn't really focus too much on like filtering culture and like success in school and stuff like that. I just wanted like good players that would create a good legacy and get some eyeballs and help with recruiting. And so I faced a lot of cultural challenges in my early year one to year two. And one of those was egregious enough that I had to even remove players from the school. And so
Wow.
those kinds of like obstacles opened my eyes into, okay, like I redirect some of my energy and filter more and kind of be stringent when I'm recruiting. And so that is like a tale of I go super hard at something. I'm extremely scrappy and resourceful. I get it done, but I don't
Right.
really like check the process of how I get it done to start out with. And then in retrospect, I see, oh, like this part of the process needs to be refined, or we need to filter for this, or something like that. And then in the future, it's never an issue again. But like I'm like experimental, I guess, in that sense.
Mhm.
I'm willing to like try new things and do new processes and start up games for new titles, even though they may or may not be like adopted or hyper successful. And I'll dump. I have historically dumped like goods into starting them. Like for College Halo, right around the time Infinite came out, we nobody really had like a Halo team in the space. It was very new. There were a lot of schools that started up clubs, and I was one of the, if not the first school nationally to start giving scholarships and recruiting for it. And I was able to recruit a very solid, like top 32 HCS roster. Um, like a bunch of amateur players that play really well in open tournaments. And we
Mhm.
won 4 national championship titles. We swept the entire league in the fall of 2022 because we were the only school that treated it seriously at that time.
Right.
And we kind of taken the back and spurred other schools to start giving scholarship and supporting it. And so we had more competition in the future, but we were able to kind of like be successful in that. And then even though we like college Halo has since more or less died out, it's not as much of a hot topic or anything anymore. That just goes to show kind of like my mindset and mentality of let's try something new and be innovative and be a trailblazer and like a theater in the space. But yeah,
Right.
I know I'm getting a little bit off topic.
No, no, it's totally fine because I'll pick more brains and more stories into this. So onto this though, has this was like your project before you went into the NECC or the or NACE
so
or
so I built this program in the first kind of even
Mhm.
including my first year of like being a full-time person,
Right.
I've really only been focused on my backyard. Like I didn't focus at all on anything nationally. I never joined NACAD. I didn't join NACE for the first 3 years of the program. I wasn't even a part of the NECC or anything like that. Like
Right.
we were just playing open developer leagues like CLOL, CVAL when they popped up, and like CRL at the time, and a few others. Like Ubisoft had their collegiate thing for Rainbow Six. And a few others. But regardless, I was very much like siloed. I didn't bother anybody. I didn't poke on anybody. I didn't try to do anything nationally. I was too busy, frankly, to do any of that kind of stuff. I had to get my
Right.
room in order first before I started trying to clean other people's rooms. And so I spent the first 3 years kind of isolated and building it out. And then
Mhm.
after I felt more comfortable, we went like a full year with no issues, for example, and still recruiting and doing well and performing. I then started to branch out and see like, okay, join NACE. They are a thought leader in the space that are pushing and elevating programs on a national level and providing a standard to compete. And I wanted to join the NECC. I got asked to be on the advisory council, and as I like went through a full year of being on that council and I started to see like, hey, this is too loose. We need to provide a level of like transparency and guidelines and structure to the NECC in order for it to be more legitimized and credible and just taken seriously. And so I spent the past summer helping the national office and the advisory council transition from that to a not-for-profit like 501c3 board of directors with membership institutional buy-in and all this other stuff, and helped
Right.
restructure the NECC. And that has been a massive undertaking, but it will be very beneficial to everybody in the space, in my opinion. Um, However, to get back on your main point, I only focused on that. Like I'm focused on what I had, what was right in front of me. How could I best impact my students?
Mhm.
And another kind of like prime or like example of that is I recruit almost entirely non-traditional. At least I did for the first kind of years, really.
Right.
I recruited mostly out of state or international, wherein our traditional recruiting pools are right next door, like OKC area, North Dallas, Kansas, like that kind of stuff. I
Mhm.
didn't really touch any of that. I didn't try to step on any toes or anything of that nature. I just focused on being the most competitively successful program and recruiting anybody and anybody that kind of like build what we needed. So I have right now, I still have a lot of remnants of that time. I have international students from Nepal, New Zealand, Australia, the Dominican Republic, Brazil, Sweden, Turkey, Vietnam, Mexico, Puerto Rico, which is a territory, but it's kind of in Canada. So I've
Wow.
11 nations that are represented right now. I've also had students from Korea, Japan, England, Chile. That's it. So four extra countries that I've impacted before as well.
Right.
But like all of these come in from literally around the globe to come in and compete in the United States to play collegiate esports. Like that is their MO. They come here, study to get a degree can help them be successful in their life, and also compete in something that they love and get a scholarship to help facilitate that kind of cost burden of and still coming here to study abroad.
Right.
So esports has been a vital role in helping these students get an opportunity that they otherwise never would have had access to. And I
That is
appreciate that.
awesome.
And that's how I
Yeah.
kind of drive a lot of decisions.
For sure. And that honestly it feels like it's a pretty big milestone, you're going off and going around to other people that, are able to get might not be able to try to be able to get them. And that's just it's really cool to hear things like that. Have you tried, I mean, even including international, tested out the waters lately to try to like in the states or
So you're talking about like recruiting more locally?
Mhm.
Yeah. So I have definitely been recruiting more locally, which is
Okay.
part of why I helped found the OAEA, or this local non-for-profit. The whole goal of it, to reiterate again, let
Mhm.
me just read it ad verbatim. our mission is to Oklahoman K through 12 students by connecting them to local resources to continue their education with the state's post-secondary academic esports ecosystem of tech centers, colleges, and universities. So there are definitely going to be a lot of students that are not fit to go to college or university, but would much rather and will survive and thrive in a tech center environment or going to a trade school or something like that. A lot of those like niche opportunities now also have esports programs and have support systems based around it and can participate in different leagues and intramurals and stuff. So we're not just colleges and universities, we're the whole post secondary umbrella. And so it's a very highly inclusive, non territorial, like resource for students here in Oklahoma.
Mhm.
Like we hosted a live in my facility here at Oklahoma Christian with 11 schools and universities and tech centers that had booths, and this was in April of this past year, and we had over 110 K through 12, well, mostly middle school and high school students come through and like to register for the event and come through and talk to colleges and get private coaching and stuff like that. Um, and that was with only 5 weeks of notice. And that
Wow.
date overlapped with two of our high school esports leagues finals dates. And so very large percentage of people couldn't even come because of the time conflict. But even with short notice, we still had over 100 people, 100 K through 12 students come in and show up. And
That's
so
awesome.
they kind of
Do
like the TAM of that can be much larger. I can see with a lead time and what we're trying to do this upcoming semester, we could probably get around 250 to 300 students to come in if we time everything correctly. So
right.
the local recruiting pool is definitely there. I work pretty closely with the OKSE, or the Oklahoma Scholastic Esports League, which is the state's premier K through 12 league, and they have over 4,500 Oklahoman students that participate in that league,
That is
which to
awesome.
me is insane.
Right.
There's over 170 participating schools. Like that's ridiculous to me. K through 12 is being supported in esports at that level. My alma mater, my high school back home in Mustang, Oklahoma, they started an esports program in the past couple years. Like if I was a kid and I had that opportunity, it would have changed my life. Like it
Oh,
really would
absolutely.
have. And so I take that into effect and into mind when I'm recruiting and building my program as like, would I like this decision if I was a student? Like, do I agree with this? Do I think that it could be impactful in retrospect? Like, all of these decisions that I make are driven primarily by the impact of the student. And I always try to keep that in mind.
So for that part, do you also go to like high schools and talk to them, or is it just specifically
Yeah,
this event? Okay.
yeah, 100%. Like we host high schools here on our campus
Hmm.
where we bring them through the facility, show them like the impact that we have, what will they perform, like our actual computers, like how they would learn more schedule, that kind of stuff. And then
Right.
also we definitely go to high schools as well. We travel out and visit them where they're at and see how they work and provide some feedback and insights, but also like spread the word that college esports is a real thing and here's our opportunities, but also take a look at everyone else.
Right.
That's very important.
So to kind of, I guess, expand on this, how's the story of you going into the NECC or NA?
I started to get a bigger picture of what the national ecosystem of college esports looked like
Hmm.
when I decided to join NACE. The first kind of couple years, I was very against NACE. And at this point, I don't really remember why. I think it was more of like an ego thing because it seemed like they were very elitist and gatekeepy. Like they were giving some bad info, like the standards of collegiate esports. For example, they had a very high SEO rated like news article about here's what it to start an esports program. And I very vividly remember that they were like the average salary of an esports director was $5,000. The average initial cost of building an esports program, like the facility itself, was about $45, and a bunch of other like minute, random numerical data that I heard from my administrators, hey,
Hmm.
you don't need to get paid more because this is the national average for what you're doing in such a new field. And
Wow.
that was very bad for me and like my vision on how everything kind of worked from like a national level. So I
Right.
was NACE for a long time. They ended up taking it down, and not many people even remember that existed. But um, I changed tune I don't remember exactly why, but I ended up joining NACE and joining in the spring semester of 2023, and we performed very well. We had a very good time in competition. Everything ran like extremely well, and I ended up going to the national convention that year, and I was blown away by how there's a few things. I was blown away by how introverted a lot of these esports directors and stuff were. Like nobody wanted to like introduce themselves. I'm an introvert, but I'm more ambiverted now, especially being in this role. And so
Right.
I was very extroverted that weekend, talking with everyone, talking in different kind of like the sessions and introducing and expanding my network and stuff. And I was very surprised by how receptive people were and how many people knew of my program because of the esports and competitive success that we had. And that really opened to my eyes on like, oh, we have an actual national in a space like this, and it's not going to go away. And every year, collegiate esports has grown and refined and like cut the fat and become more like built as a
Right.
unit. And I wanted to help drive and impact that, and I immediately applied for leadership position in NACE that at that convention.
Mhm.
And through that and like all of the like vocal nature that I had at the convention, the NECC director, Jacob Van Ryn, he reached out to me and was like, "Hey, I know that you're looking at building like the national ecosystem of collegiate esports, and you have a very good mind for it, and I would like you to be a part of the advisory council." So like my outwardness and like out like at that convention to join the national impact of collegiate esports. So like I will always be grateful to how they've helped start and open doors for good conversation, and it has really gotten better every year. I've been to two national conventions now, and it's been great both times. And I'm excited for next year as well.
That's
But
awesome. What
yeah.
what have they I guess like really helped you with on like uh on the um projects that you're on? What has like both companies really like helped you work with?
um I'm gonna be charitable and try to interpret that.
Thanks.
um NACE has given me the opportunity to look at governance, like esports governance, from a more
Mm,
minute level, wherein I'm working with the eligibility committee. We're going over the entire eligibility process and deadlines and joint leadership, working in like a multifaceted organization where we with the board of directors and the competition committee pretty closely to make sure everything's aligned strategically. So like our strategic goals and initiatives are all good to go, and that we're
mhm,
following the mission of NACE. On like a granular, minute level, and that we're being charitable and lenient when we interpret eligibility like exemption requests and stuff like that, but also being very guided by the Constitution and bylaws to where we're not just giving everyone a pass. And we're handling things the right way. And we have like a three-step system and process, like a remedial system and an escalation for level of gravitas, all of
mhm,
that kind of stuff set in. And we helped build that structure in the past 2 years. And we've been heavily executing the past week on getting all the ITCs and the ECs in this year for NACE, which are the intent to compete and the eligibility confirmation certificates, all of those kinds of things. So for NACE, I learned a lot more about esports governance and working in a multifaceted environment with a larger like leadership team. And then for the I was able to stretch my wings more on the creative side from an administrative perspective and helping build a constitution of bylaws from scratch using resources that exist, but like polishing things I wish were different, cleaning things up that I wish were different elsewhere, and having the freedom to help impact that for the largest national collegiate league. There are over 290 schools that participate in that. There's over 18,000 students that participate in the NECC. Like it's huge,
right.
and the impact that I get to have by helping shape the leadership style and infrastructure um, is crucial and has opened my eyes to like, hey, there's more to collegiate esports than just okay, it's match day, it's 6 p.m. on Wednesday, get your Call of Duty team on the PC and play your BO3. Like it's
Right.
it's more than just that.
It
Um,
has evolved within like the last few years of even being in the collegiate space, seeing it go from like clubs to what it is now.
yeah,
it's, it's definitely eye-opening to see it happen and to see where it might be going in 5 years or the next even 10 years.
For sure.
What do you think the next 5 to 10 years would be like for you in the collegiate space?
For me is a very good question. I can't even
Mhm.
answer that remotely right now. But from the collegiate esports, like as a whole, I think it's heading in a healthier direction. The creation of voice, which is the voice of international collegiate esports,
Mhm.
that organization is going to be super impactful to the space at large. They're going to help set standards that define what collegiate esports looks like in the next 5 years. I'm very confident in that. I think that it might even happen sooner, but in 10 years, I think collegiate esports will look completely different than it does today. Collegiate esports isn't even 10 years old right now.
Right.
The earliest program that started supporting scholarships and like a varsity program level um, was 10 years ago, really. So I guess it is 10 years old now. That's RMU. But the real like draw and impact and like the adopters were in 2016. Then a lot of people started up in 2018. And then since then, it's been a pretty linear growth year over year with some decay. But 2016 to 2018 was really like the formation of collegiate esports. So the field as it stands is not that old. So giving it double the amount of time in 10 years, it is going to look drastically different.
Oh, for
How
sure.
that looks like, no one can really say, but I am confident that it'll be healthier and better than it is right now.
Exactly. What the cool thing is, or I guess like another question to add on to this, the role that you play right now, right? Like it's different from what you probably have wanted maybe 5, 6 years ago before
Yep.
all this. What would you say to someone who is in like high school or going into college? What would you say the route would be for you to take? If they wanted to go maybe the same following your footsteps, what would you
So
say would be advice for them?
so being charitable and a high
Mhm.
schooler between ages of 16 and 18 have zero managerial experience, zero
Right.
leadership experience. If they want to be a director of esports, that is mind-boggling to me. I definitely would not have seen myself as like a high school student, any sort of like manager or leader or anything like that nature.
For sure.
In fact, I am a completely different person than I was in high school. I'm a completely different person than what I even was in college. Like even right before I graduated, like I am a totally different person than I was. I didn't know that I had this in me. I didn't know that I loved helping administrate and build and be like a program manager and refine processes and look at data sheets and all that kind of stuff. Like I didn't know that at all. If someone does and they feel like they're driven to this and that they feel that they're called to help lead in any capacity in the college esports space, then kudos to them for one, and for two, the path I would take would be to obviously join an esports program. I would join any like you don't have to be picky what the status of the program is or anything like that. You should definitely focus on your degree first. Go to the college that you feel drawn to be career and academic successful, whether it's a community college into a D3 or in a D2 or a massive state school D1, like whatever that looks like for you, your mind and your heart, and you will be successful wherever you go as long as you are receptive and critical to feedback, and that you are outgoing, outspoken, and volunteering and have a service mindset. If you have a service leadership mindset, you will open up so many doors. It's not even funny. And you will learn and get experience and exposure to leadership during the safety period that you have in college, where you have about 4 years of not having to worry about a lot of other things in life, like a family or moving
Right.
for a job relocation or anything like that, where you have like a safer environment to fail forward if you need to, but to also just be supported. So having a service mindset, volunteering for leadership positions, joining up like a student club, helping coach or manage teams, not simply just playing, which you definitely could play, and I encourage you to do so, but also offering to manage a different team, and coach them or something of that nature, where you can start to understand the governance side of collegiate esports is super important as well. If you wanted to be like a director in this space, so I think that can kind of more clearly summarize it.
For sure. Like for the goal of this, I like the podcast for me, it's that, if you're in high school, my mindset, or a few people that I've heard from, is like, oh, when I was in high school, I just wanted to play games and get paid for it, or I wanted to be a coach.
Yeah,
And there wasn't really more to it other than you're either a player or you're a coach. But no one really got down. If I could hear someone say, oh, I wanted to be a manager, or there was a director, there's a chairman, there's marketing for this stuff. Like, I feel like if I would have heard that there was those options when I was younger, I'd probably want to like hear or learn more from
yeah.
people that had those jobs. So
So
I appreciate the advice. I thank you so much for them.
of course, yeah, and 100%. And I will be the first person to say that I don't know everything. And
Right.
I do know that these things exist. I don't have a lot of personal experience with them, but programs like St. Clair, Shenandoah, and a few others that support esports as an ecosystem and as the actual field, you definitely
Hmm.
come to understand that esports is analogous to sports. Like there's a whole industry behind it, endemic third party companies that interface with us every single day, whether it be PC manufacturers or peripherals or software or the game developers or furniture makers that are curated to esports, or the VoIP services like TeamSpeak and Sonics and Discord and a bunch of other things, right? All of these
Right.
things play a hard role and effect into our esports ecosystem, and there are more and more every year that are starting up or gaining traction and stuff like that. And so there's always going to be job opportunities at those as well. They're going to need accountants, they're going to need marketers, they're going to need managers, they're going to need business developers and sales reps and everything under the sun, AV manufacturers and like technical equipment specificities and engineering like that you study in college can relate and impact collegiate esports as a really hyper niche specific field under esports, which is a really
Right.
hyper niche specific field under gaming, which is a 200 plus $1 billion industry. So there's always more to learn, and there's always more that's growing. Whether it be production, that is now gaining a lot of traction, like Fair State's killing it, and a couple of their schools are definitely killing it in the space with production and AV and all that kind of stuff. And I don't have a lot of expertise in that, and I celebrate those programs for being a driving force and helping students get internships and jobs and stuff like that. Full Sail's also an amazing program doing that. Boise State, same thing. They're doing fantastic with those. And
Right.
there's esports career readiness that is widely becoming adopted and a well-known thing, because of that impact of having a program that's supported with the resources to run a production, a studio, and running social media and graphic design and motion media and all that kind of stuff, and then news writing even, and the list goes on. But esports is more than just sitting down and competing. There's an
Right.
entire like living, breathing system behind it.
There is. And the cool thing is too is even if someone did go into something that was like for esports, and they were like, oh, like I'm gonna go into marketing for I'm gonna do accounting for esports, that even if they do that, they can still take that outside of esports if the job market isn't there. I mean, it seems like it's there, but you could go off and go, I'm an accountant, I can go do this, or I'm
Yeah,
a manager, marketing manager, I can also go do this, until something opens up for me in a field that I really want to be in. My final question to you, though, and I've asked every person that I've talked to,
sure.
what advice would you give yourself post collegiate esports?
Post collegiate esports.
Like before, like in college, listening to yourself, and like before the business you make, before all of that, what advice would you give yourself?
Like like before I started the program,
Hmm.
knowing everything I know now, what would I tell myself?
Yes, like before OAE, before any
Yeah,
CC,
yeah.
before ACE, all of it.
Um, I mean, the first thing that myself is to detach myself from the students. I am not a peer. I might be the same age as them. I might even be
Mm,
younger than some of them, but I am not their friend. I am a role model and a leader in the space, and I need to have the distance necessary to do that. And I need to have the level of respect gained and demanded to do that. I struggled a lot my first year, especially year and a half, really, like the whole time during COVID. I struggled a lot with that. I very much valued the kind of like real relationship and nature I have with students because I was involved in their culture and I was like a leader in their culture, but I was also like their age and I could speak
right,
their own and their language and stuff, and I heavily related to a lot of them, right? So it was very easy for me to fall into that like kind of peer role, and
for
that
sure.
a lot of issues, and not even just like with the students, but with me, like how I saw some students like I took their word at face value without thinking things through, right? That kind of
Right.
stuff was not the smartest decision and caused me a lot of hardship. And so if I could go back and tell myself like, look, you're going to go through this, you're going to take this seriously, you're still going to be successful, and you're going to find even more success if you could detach yourself from that peer mindset and grow as a leader in the space sooner than what I did. Because
Right.
I being trying to humble brag here, but I feel like I've accomplished that now. But I could have done it earlier, and I feel like I would have had a lot more impact earlier if I did that.
Absolutely. And the cool thing is though is like, we're the this life that we're living day by day. It's a life lesson that we're all learning. We just kind of take one day at a time. And also like from your advice, I really like it. It's falling forward. I love that so much. I'm going to take that from you.
Oh, 100%. It's
Awesome.
definitely not mine, so take it.
I will. I'm gonna yoink it, and then someone's gonna go. Oh, that was mine. I'm like, oh, well, you can thank Lucas. He told me. Awesome. Well, where can people find you on socials?
They can find me just by looking up my name on Google. Honestly, everything pops up if you look up Lucas Hayworth, spelled how it sound. My tag is Maestro. A lot of people don't know how to pronounce it, and that's okay. But if you want to look up my name, you can find me anywhere. I also have my own business under LH Esports, and I'll be working to expand that in the next year, no matter what happens. But if they want to reach out to me, I have all my business and personal emails and stuff pretty accessible, and my Twitter account's accessible, all that kind of stuff. I'm an open door, and so if anyone has any questions or anything of that nature about college esports, especially, I am more than willing to help out. Just reach out to me.
That is awesome. And I will also put all his social links in the show notes and in the description below if you're listening on YouTube or on Spotify. So, yeah, thank you guys so much for listening. Thank you, Lucas, for being a part of this. I really greatly appreciate it. And yeah, we'll see you guys on.
Thank you for having me, Courtney. It was a blast. Thank you so much.
Awesome. Bye.